this is why we never have the pets in the room. Can you... Okay, hi everybody. Thanks for coming back if you've been here before, or if you're new here, my name is Mickey. I am a therapist and we talk about therapist-y things on this channel. Today we're gonna do a cute little Q&A moment. I posted questions on my Instagram and on the community tab, so if you want to be part of a Q&A in the future, make sure you keep an eye on the community tab and go follow me on Instagram. Also go follow me all of the other places. I have links in the description, but I'll put all of my ads on the screen right now. Thanks. So let's just jump into it. I think we're going to do Instagram first because that's what I have on my phone. And then we'll switch to YouTube. And I'm not going to censor the usernames on these because I am assuming that you guys are okay with me sharing them. Savannah Bree asked me what was my internship during grad school like. I did 2 internships. Why are the words not coming out of my mouth today? I did 2 internships, but the one that I did during grad school was really, really nice. I mean, I was fortunate that both of my internships were really fun. I know that that's not everyone's experience, but I was really lucky that I just really enjoyed both of mine. I was placed in a clinical environment, so I was actually practicing therapy for my clinical placement during grad school, and I was lucky enough to be placed with an agency that had a lot of interns, so there was a lot of us, and we just got to, like, you know, talk to each other about our experience, and it was very validating and very helpful. That said, there was a lot of imposter syndrome, and it was like a very overwhelming experience. I have like a very vivid memory of coming out of like a particularly difficult session and walking into the intern office and being like, does anyone else feel like they have no fucking idea what they're doing? Like, yes? Great. Like, and all of the other interns were like, yes, like no idea what we're doing. Very confused. So it was overwhelming for sure. And like I said, I know that that's not everyone's experience, but mine were really nice. Ooh, okay. Cassandra Jayski, I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing your name wrong, asked me for my favorite Tucson restaurant. I'm gonna ask this to my husband too, because everywhere I eat, he eats. Like, we always eat out together. Our favorite Tucson restaurant.
Like, you already know the answer? Or?
No, like I'm like genuinely asking for your opinion. I mean, my first thought was like this sort of Serial Grillers franchise that exists in Tucson. We eat there a lot. Like Serial Grillers, Toro Loco, like all of those places.
I mean, Toss really does.
But yeah, we do eat Toss a lot. We eat like ramen a lot. So like Toss, Kiwami. Why do you look so nervous?
I don't know. I feel like there's never a right answer because it really does change.
Yeah. I would say that I say our because my husband and I eat out together all the time, like always. I don't ever really eat out by myself. But our favorite restaurant really does change over time. Like, we very much are phase people with that. So right now we're really in a like ramen phase. So we've eaten at Toss Chicken and Ramen a lot. We've eaten at Kiwami a little bit. Generally, we really enjoy pizza. So like Barrows and Serial Grillers. But yeah, I mean, we're like pretty easy to please people. If it's like a small business and it's like good food, we've probably eaten there. The only place that I will not eat though is Culinary Dropout. I will fight anybody in the comments. I don't fucking like that place. It's overpriced and the food is not good. I'm sorry I said what I said. Miss Allie Marie asked me how to find a therapist when you move to a new place. I don't even know where to start. We actually have a video about this, but just sort of a brief overview. Psychology Today is a great resource. I also have a video that will be coming. Our sort of lofty goal is to update that video at the first of every year, and so we're going to try and keep new resources coming every year with like new things that I learn about how to find a therapist. Other great places to look are Open Path or Inclusive Therapists. Glimmer is a great LGBTQ friendly one. There are lots of like search engines, and honest to God, just getting on Google can be a useful resource too, like getting on Google Maps and typing in behavioral health agency. So I would encourage you to check out those videos. That video, but those are some like good places to get started. Also ask your family and friends. They might have good resources for you too, if you're comfortable with that. Zoe Chronicles said, what is your heritage? Thank you for phrasing this question in a kind and compassionate way. I remember getting this question a lot when I was growing up, where people would say, what are you? Which was like very offensive to me. My like ethnicity is like a mix of Caucasian and Hispanic. My mom's family is Mexican, and I very much identify with Mexican culture. That was the family that I grew up around most often, so that's like the culture that I identify identify with. But, you know, now as an adult, I'm like very much a white lady. Like I'm married to a white man and we don't really do a lot of Mexican things. So it's kind of a mixed bag. We have like some aspects of Mexican culture and Mexican heritage in our life, but it's kind of like a little bit amorphous, a little bit all over the place. This I thought was a super interesting question. Sarah O'Lee asked me this. It says, is therapy with someone who isn't a good fit better than no therapy at all? I don't know. I kind of feel conflicted about this because part of me feels like maybe potentially therapy can be a really valuable resource. And I think, I mean, you know, like I've said this on the channel a lot, that I think everyone can benefit from therapy, and I highly encourage all people to look into the resource if that's an option for you. But I think it's also important to honor that a therapist who doesn't validate or honor particular beliefs or viewpoints or like parts of your identity that are important for you can be incredibly damaging. So a therapist who brings their religion into the room, and if you're like an LGBTQ client, that can be really damaging and like counterintuitive and like more damaging and traumatizing to you than not going to therapy at all. So like in that case, it's probably better to just like listen to self-help podcasts and like not go to therapy than it would be to try and engage with this person who's potentially re-traumatizing and like hurting you. So I think it kind of depends on the situation. I will very much be a person who is a firm advocate for going to therapy and utilizing the resource if it's available to you, like I said. But I do think it's important for people to honor that sometimes it's not a good fit, and especially if it doesn't feel safe for you, that's okay. There are a lot of therapists out there, and I know that it can be really hard to get in therapy, but I would encourage people to stick to their guns about what feels important to you and what your non-negotiables are for what like a safe and validating therapist feels like. So I hope that answers your question. Megan Allison, she said, do you want to have kids? Very much yes. I joke all the time that I want to have enough children to populate my own softball team. I'm very much on team want to have a bunch of children. Not right now though. Please don't ever speculate in the comments about whether I'm pregnant or not. I promise if and when I am ready to have children, or if I am pregnant, I will let y'all know. Speculating about the pregnancy status of YouTubers and public figures can be really harmful and hurtful, so please don't do that. Thanks. Are there any fur babies or pets that we haven't met? Kind of. So we have 2 cats and 2 dogs. Our 2 cats are named Imogen and Echelon. And we have 2 dogs named Savannah and Olivia. I know that Echelon was in a video a long time ago, and you guys probably have seen the dogs in some capacity. I think Imogen is a little bit elusive. The pets are featured more on my Instagram than they are really anywhere else, just because they're kind of like up in my business usually when I'm trying to work from home. I guess I can try and bring them in here. The cats are kind of hard to wrangle though. Echelon in particular really does not like to be like handled. She's very, very cat-like. She does not want to be told what to do. So it's kind of hard to like parade her in front of a camera. She's not really into that. So we'll insert some pictures of them here so you guys can see them with their names. AMB Nails asked, what are the signs that your therapist might not be a good fit or is unprofessional? I've actually made a graphic about this on my Instagram once upon a time when I was like actually making useful graphics and posting them regularly. Signs that your therapist might not be a good fit is that if you are like regularly dreading going to therapy, or if you are regularly leaving therapy feeling worse than when you got there, if there's lots of disagreement and lots of like hard feelings happening, if you are noticing that your mood is continuing to get worse or that you're feeling like you're not making progress, there's lots of like pretty obvious indicators that therapy is not a good fit. And I would also say that there's not really a one size fits all to this. It's very much on an individual basis, and I would encourage people to honor what feels like a good fit or not a good fit to them. And so if you're just like not enjoying it, or you feel like your therapist is just maybe not your person, like that's also fine. Therapy is inherently subjective. And so if it's just like not feeling right, that's a valid enough reason for you to try and find another one. You don't necessarily need like a good enough reason to leave or transfer. I would encourage you to transfer instead of just quitting altogether, because there's usually a therapist out there for you. Okay, let's do one more and then we'll switch to YouTube. Samantha Lyons 1 asked me, I'm an MSW student, and what are your best tips for school or balancing work and interning, etc.? I know that there are quite a few of you who are also MSW students or are new therapists or therapists, and so I get questions like this fairly often. I think, again, this is something that's not necessarily a one-size-fits-all, But the thing that I remember from grad school, and again, everyone will have a different experience with this. This is just reflective of my particular program and my experiences. So like, again, grain of salt as always. But I remember there being a lot of glorification of like the doing it all mentality, and especially people who were working full time and had kids and were, you know, like juggling a lot of different things. There was very much this attitude that that was like a healthy and appropriate and sort of expected thing to do. And while I do very much value and appreciate that those people were able to do that, I would argue that that's not necessarily something we should be glorifying. I know that that's a lot of people's reality, and so, you know, that's completely fair, and I don't want to like dunk on those people. I want to be clear, I'm not trying to like look down my nose at anybody, but I think in the interest of encouraging people to honor their realistic limits, I do just want to put it out there that grad school is really fucking hard, and people have a really hard time managing their needs and juggling all of these different aspects of life. So if you are a grad student, or you're just like in college generally, or like you're a human trying to juggle all of the human things that we have to do, you're having a hard time doing that, you're not alone in that, and I promise that you are not the only person who feels that way. This is an inherently difficult thing to do, and so I would encourage people to not drink the Kool-Aid and not like participate in this rhetoric of like, oh yeah, well I only slept 2 hours, well I didn't sleep at all. Like, that's not healthy. That's not a good thing. And again, I know that sometimes that's just our reality, and that's totally fair, but it is okay for you to say, you know, maybe I need to work less hours, or maybe I need to say no to this or that or the other, and just kind of take things off of your plate as you're able to. There's no shame in that, and you are very much allowed to do that and still be hardworking and wonderful and worthy of all the good things. Hi, Echelon. We were just talking about you. Did you hear? The people want to see you. Hi. Look at you. Oh my goodness. Hello. Hello. Yes, I know. Like I told you, she hates being handled. Look at her. She said exit plan, exit plan. I need to get out of here. If there's wheezing noises, it's because my cat has an upper respiratory thing. She's okay. We manage it, and she does just fine. She's a little wheezy. So the top comment on my community tab post is from Carly Ann. It says, have you ever fired a client? If so, what about them made you fire them? Was it not following recommendations, or a difference in personality, etc.? Also, can a therapist fire you if you experience traumas that are too triggering for a therapist to deal with? So in answer to this, yes, I have had to fire a client before. I try not to speak too specifically about my experiences with clients on the channel just because of the confidentiality constraints, but it's not an uncommon experience for therapists to fire clients, but it does not happen in the way that y'all might think it does. I have never fired a client purely because I didn't like them. That's not fair or appropriate or ethical. When I say fire a client too, what I mean is that I have had to have a conversation where I am honest about like my expertise or ability level doesn't match with the need that's been expressed, or with the work that needs to be done. And so it's important for me to refer you out to someone who can actually help you. Or for scheduling reasons, that's a conversation that's happened before. If there is a difficulty with follow through, so if we're scheduling appointments and the appointments are being repeatedly canceled over and over and over again, especially with the less than 24 hours notice, that is usually a conversation that has to be had about, you know, it's not a punishment, but it is difficult to hold a spot in the calendar when there are people who do want that appointment and then that appointment gets canceled because I can't adequately refill that spot. My schedule, I work in the evening hours because I'm not a morning person. And so like those after work appointments are pretty highly sought after. And so for example, if I had someone who was booking like the 5:30 appointment, which is like a pretty heavily requested one, but then, you know, canceled that appointment like 3 weeks in a row without giving me notice, or like no call, no showed me 3 weeks in a row, I have to have a conversation with that person about how that's not really an appropriate expectation for me to set, because there are other people who would have wanted that appointment, and then A, I'm losing money, but B, I'm not really being fair or like doing right by my other clients by just leaving this hole in my schedule. So yes, sometimes do therapists have to fire clients, but it is never from a place of malice. It should never be from a place of malice. It's just an unfortunate side effect of the field. And usually it is just like a circumstantial thing, or like I said, because my expertise just doesn't match, and I have to refer the person out for better services. Oh, in answer to the trauma thing though, I have never had to do this. I would imagine it's probably come up in the history of therapy, and I think that would be a fair thing. I'm not sure how someone would approach that in a healthy boundaries way. It might just be a conversation about how it's simply not a great fit, or it is not feeling like an ethical fit, and so they're being referred out. And there's always like a conversation where we provide the resources too. So you're never just like dumping somebody's ass on the street. You're always providing them with opportunities for follow-up and continuity of care. Emma Lee asked, what diagnoses can therapists make, and how do you feel about patients coming in wondering about a self-diagnosis that they have? For example, if they think they might have ADHD or depression based off the things that they saw online and they want a diagnosis. So therapists can make a number of different diagnoses. I will say things like ADHD can be a little bit difficult because it is a neurodivergency, and because usually people who are seeking an ADHD diagnosis are also seeking to be medicated alongside of that. And depending on therapist credentialing, they may or may not be able to prescribe medication. I cannot, social workers cannot prescribe medication. To my knowledge, the only therapists that are able to prescribe medication are psychiatrists, and it is somewhat rare for psychiatrists to do psychotherapy and psychiatry. And so, like I said, it's a little bit of a difficult diagnosis to give, but that said, it's still like a symptomatology that you can address. Like there's interventions that you can provide for the symptoms that are showing up without necessarily like insisting that this person has this diagnosis and like forcing them to go and get medicated for this, or like demanding that they go get a prescription for that diagnosis. I personally don't take any issue with clients who come in and say, hey, I have a suspicion that I have this diagnosis based on this, that, or the other. I know therapists can vary on how they feel about this. Personally, I don't see the issue with it, because I think it is a good sign that a person is checked in with what's going on with them. And if it's not accurate, then we can talk about that. I think the only issue I would have with this is if a client was only coming to me for the diagnosis and they wanted like the one session to get a diagnosis and then they wanted to leave. My services, typically I'm looking to do a like typical therapeutic intervention of like several, like what are we doing exactly? Did you want to talk? Okay. I'm typically looking to formulate a treatment plan that's like several weeks long, where we're like doing, doing some amount of work, and not just like one appointment. Okay, ma'am, you're like making crinkly noises. You're being a little bit of a disruption. Okay. Mindy said, what is something most people don't know about what it means to be a therapist? P.S. Love your channel. I'm in school to be a therapist, and it's been so informative. Thanks, Mindy. I'm glad you like the channel. I guess the thing that I think people, maybe it's like an assumption that people have about therapy. I think people have the assumption that like sort of one way or the other, that either therapists are only in the field to make money, or that being in mental health means that you can make no money at all. And I disagree with both of those. My experience has been that people assume when you work in mental health that you'll just make no money and you're only doing it because you care about people and you're willing to sort of take the pay cut. And like that's true to a certain extent. I do my job because I care about people and I care about the work. But it is also possible for therapists to make a healthy living and to realize their financial goals and to like pay off their student loans, for example, and like have a family that they can afford and, like meet their financial goals in a way that's still ethical and appropriate. I am so frustrated with this rhetoric that like doctors are allowed to be rolling around in the cash, but if therapists do it, it means that we're like greedy and we're assholes. Like, fuck that. I think that's super fucking annoying and disingenuous. Therapists are allowed to care deeply about the work that we do and also demand to be paid fairly. So I hope that answers your question. I don't know if that was a bit of a tangent, but okay, this is a little bit of a long one. But Rowan said, how do you deal with separating being a therapist from your personal life? This question could probably be taken multiple ways, but I was wondering how you can be someone's therapist and see so many different clients and help someone deal with their problems, etc. How can you unwind from that? I feel like it might get exhausting for a therapist, or maybe it would be hard to stop being a therapist and unwind at the end of the day. So like, yes, it is hard to unwind at the end of the day, but I think, at least for me, I can't speak for all therapists, obviously, but I found a lot of success in setting really clear boundaries. I was one of the therapists who had never done telehealth before the panorama, and that really fucked up my boundary setting because Previously, my boundary was, that work never came home with me. I was very intentional about leaving paperwork and like all of my office supplies and all my shit at work. The only thing that ever came home with me was my laptop, mostly just because I used it to like fuck around on and like, play video games and stuff. But I, during the pandemic, had to figure out how to set boundaries while working from home. So that was kind of a head trip. But I think having those really clear boundaries and like setting a time for me of when I'm working and when I'm not working is a useful way to delineate. And in terms of like separating from my personal life, I find that I just have to be kind of conscious. Sometimes I have conversations with my friends where I notice myself trying to do the therapist thing. Well, I'll start to ask a question as if someone is a client. And honestly, I just find it helpful to own that and be like, oops, sorry, I just asked you a therapist question. Like, please don't answer that. I didn't mean to do that. And the people in my personal life seem to be receptive to that. Ow! Stop! This is why we never have the pets in the room. Can you... I've also found really intentional self-care to be a useful tool too, and having my own therapist. If you are a therapist and you are not in therapy, what are you doing? Get in therapy because it makes such a world of a difference. I very much value getting a place to talk with another therapist about like, the anxiety and the fear that comes along with the profession because they get it and it's very validating and helpful. So I hope that made sense. Okay, Deanna asked, how do therapists compartmentalize their feelings about heavy things clients are dealing with? How does it not get intrusive or burdensome to think about clients when not in session? This is kind of a hard one, I think, because for me, the answer is just do it. The compartmentalization is something that I have tried really hard to build into my practice from the beginning. And so I think especially at this point, it just feels very intuitive, like it just is. But I guess the answer to this is just that we have to have a very intentional separation between professional and personal. Part of that too is the very clear boundaries that we have with clients that I can't and won't be responsible for the healing of my clients. I tell my clients at their intake, and I remind them all of the time that even if I was the coolest therapist on the face of planet Earth, which I am most definitely not, that all of that expertise and knowledge and advice wouldn't mean anything if they didn't go home and do the work, And so that's like the really important thing to keep in mind here is that I can't do the work for anybody. I am there to be a guiding hand and to disperse the knowledge and expertise that I have, but ultimately clients are responsible for their own healing. And this is helpful too because then they get to own the success and the victory for that when they've made it through the other side of that really difficult journey. It's not to say that I don't care because I obviously do. I care about my clients a lot, but it is kind of a boundary thing in that like I said, I can't and won't be responsible for their healing because ultimately it's not my life, And again, even if I was the most wonderful therapist, I am only seeing them at maximum like 1 hour a week, maybe 2 hours a week. And so there's really just like a limited amount of influence I have, and I just have to like honor that it's not my life and I'm doing what I can, and that's all that I am allowed ethically and able to do. So I hope that kind of makes sense. Okay, something I've wondered, would it be inappropriate to express some sort of sentiment of being grateful to your therapist, grateful for your therapist to them? Just like therapy has been such a great support for me, and I'm really grateful to have found a therapist that's such a helpful part of my support system. No, that's not inappropriate at all. I've had clients express this to me, and I'm always so like happy to hear this. I think the other thing about this too is that your therapist is the one who's responsible for the boundaries. Even if clients do try to push the boundaries, like that sometimes comes with the territory, and it's your therapist's responsibility to make sure that they're behaving ethically. You are very much allowed to say what is on your mind or on your heart. And so if you're feeling grateful for your therapist, that's totally allowed to say. It's also just kind of nice, like from, the therapist's perspective, it's kind of nice to hear that feedback because especially for, therapists who haven't been doing this for like 35 years, it is sometimes nice to have the feedback of like, yay, like it's helping, because there's sometimes imposter syndrome and things like that. And so that feedback can be useful for sure. So please don't ever be afraid to tell your therapist how you feel generally. But again, like please don't hold yourself to this standard of like being the ethical one because that's not your job. Your job is to like show up and heal and take care of yourself. So Yeah. Okay. I want to answer this one. So Crispy Cakes asked, do you have any clients that you just dread seeing? Like, oh no, not him again. Has it been a week already? I wanted to address this because I've answered this question in a Q&A that I did on my Instagram a while ago. So the question on my Instagram was like, do you have favorite clients or like clients that you dislike? And like kind of, but not really. Anytime that I find myself feeling overwhelmed or like fearful about a particular appointment, it's usually a reflection of my shit. And so sometimes, I mean, I'm not gonna lie to you, like sometimes I do have anxiety and fear about a particular appointment or like dealing with a particular issue, but it's not because clients are like terrible people or because your therapist secretly hates you. If your therapist is feeling that way, usually it's a reflection of their own stuff. And most good therapists who are, you know, in therapy and doing their own work are able to see this and are able to kind of own and honor that like this is a me thing and this is not my client. And part of the training that we receive in being a therapist is how to leave our own shit at the door and like separate the personal from the professional. And so it's my job, if I'm having a day where I'm overwhelmed and like having a hard time or like feeling a lot of fear and imposter syndrome about dealing with this particular issue, that I need to put that in a box. I need to like write a post-it note to talk to my therapist about that. But in the here and now, it's my job to be a professional and to show up for this person and to do the best that I can with the evidence-based information that I have and like really do my due diligence to care for this person in the way that I have agreed to. And like I said, not all therapists think this way. I'm sure some people feel differently and maybe some therapists never experience this. I don't know. But I would argue that most good therapists are able to kind of engage with this process of separating the personal and the professional. So yes, sometimes we do have those days where it's like, oh, I can't believe I have to deal with this, but not because you suck, not because your therapist hates you or dreads you. I tell my clients all the time, I don't waste my own goddamn time. Like, I work in private practice and I have the luxury of deciding who my clients are. So if I don't want to work with somebody, then I won't. Especially after an initial consultation, if I feel like it's not a good fit or I feel like I don't have the right expertise, I just refer a person out. If I don't feel like that client is a good fit for me, then I wouldn't be seeing them week after week. I'm not going to fill my caseload with clients that aggravate me or like are upsetting to me. That is counterintuitive and ridiculous. So if your therapist is continuing to see you and like you're a part of their caseload, it's probably for a good reason. Okay. I hope that you guys found this interesting and or helpful. I tried to kind of mix in some like personal and professional things and answer as many questions as I could. I know I tend to be long-winded, so hopefully we got a good number of questions in there. I have no idea how long the camera has been rolling, so I hope that you guys found this fun. I enjoyed this. Let me know if you guys liked it. If you did, click the like button, because that lets me know if you guys want to see more of this type of content. Let me know what your thoughts are in the comments, and I would love to chat with you guys. Subscribe to the channel, because we do content like this and then other fun therapist react style stuff. And share the video to help the channel grow and to help each other grow. So see you guys next Saturday. Okay, bye.